Hello, Playdate. This is Ryan.
And this is Nick,
This week we are covering Playdate news
Indie Games of the Week.
and speculating about the whereabouts of our third host.
Thanks for listening. Let's get started.
Okay, so there is a mysterious absence among us, and the void is surely felt. We do not have Don here today. Don's got some stuff going on that he was not able to join us, unfortunately. But Don, we miss you. We'll be sending the episode your way because, as longtime listeners know, Don is the glue that holds all this together, puts up all the episodes, makes all the show notes. So Nick and I are like little fledgling co-hosts let loose to our own prepubescent devices. I know this is going nowhere fast. Help me, Nick.
Yeah, so aside from Don not being able to join us at the moment, Ryan and I both had really interesting scheduling problems this week. So anyway, here we are.
Yes,
And
making it
as you can
happen.
tell, we're doing great so far. Ryan, what's happening in news and notes?
Oh, golly, I'm glad you asked. So over on the Panic website, Twitter account, actually, Nevin Mergen, who you might know as part of Nevin and Krista Mergen, said he noticed that it's been officially 6 months since they released the Playdate SDK to the public, and there are already over 250 plus Playdate games over on itch.io. Truly amazing. Thank you so much. More to come. So, yeah, we've sort of mentioned this phenomenon in the past that, man, there are games being developed left and right, and in half a year, 250 plus games available. That's bonkers. So anyway, I thought I would highlight that and say kudos to the developers and to Panic for blowing this development platform wide open and letting anybody have a chance at doing this. I think this is very cool.
Yeah, definitely. So it's impressive how quickly it's been embraced, and
Mhm.
with games of all different sizes, from quick hit little things to much longer experiences. So um, it's it's good to see the breadth of support, and
Indeed.
hopefully that continues.
Yeah. Excellent. Developers, keep going. And by golly, if you've got something exciting coming down the pipeline, let us know. We've got some contact information somewhere. Where's
Uh,
Don? Don, we miss you.
Show notes are a good place to find
There you go.
out how to find us. Um, Speaking of finding, Ryan, how did you find the latest official Playdate podcast about number one game of the season, Demon Quest 85?
Number one game in your heart. I loved the podcast. I'm still trying to find some time to really get on board Demon Quest. But as always, Krista Mergen does a bang up job over there on the official Playdate podcast, which you can uh, find over there somewhere. Oh, I'm a mess today, but Krista, keep up the great work over there. Did you find anything in particular of note that the developers were talking about regarding Demon Quest, Mr.
Uh,
Number One Demon Quest game
the biggest
lover?
thing that I heard was that they were thinking initially about releasing different scenarios set in different time periods. So it'll be interesting if that ever comes to fruition. But oh, and I think another tidbit there was that all the dialogue and flow control was scripted in Excel, which
Yes.
seemed very complicated.
Yeah, I think even the developer was saying, since then, I've learned that there are far better ways of doing this. But, before you really get a handle on something, you're trying it out for the first time, you don't know a right way to do it. And so you're doing it a way. But I thought
Yeah,
that was really interesting because even as an artist, I think Excel is invaluable and I use it so much for budgets, for timelines, for productivity charts for man, just myriad of things. And so I thought it was really interesting. And I could even sort of like envision what he was doing, keeping track of all these in different cells. Um, I'm guessing there's some sort of different program that would better port all these different pieces of dialogue into whatever you're using. But yeah, it made it feel a little more accessible to me, knowing that there was like, I don't know development. I'm an art guy. You know development. I'm sure it all makes sense to you. But for me, it felt like, oh, okay. Maybe things like this can be done by mere mortals.
And this was the turning point where this became Ryan's favorite game of the season as well. So
The Excel link turned it for me.
looking forward to that updated ranking, Ryan. But yeah, it's cool podcast. Give it a listen. As always, just fantastic production and really interesting development story.
Yeah, so I'm sure that the next uh, official Playdate podcast is going to release like the second we drop this one. So go check out whatever new episode is going on there, since now this Demon Quest podcast is 2 weeks old news. Speaking of 2 weeks old news, there is another update from Panic that I thought I would highlight. It's not Playdate specific, but it says Panic, makers of Playdate, who also publishes video games, goes on to list a few of them. We have more games coming, and we are looking for a producer. Spread the word to your producer friends. We're going to have a link to this Twitter post in the show notes for today's episode. But Nick, I was wondering, because I am ignorant, what is a producer of a video game? Does that just mean somebody who like tosses some cash around, or is this like somebody who has development chops in the game, or like what does a producer do?
It's as with movies, it varies by studio and what exactly the role entails, but usually it involves keeping timelines straight, budgets straight, that kind of thing, as well as making sure developers are meeting milestones and so forth. So there's a bit of project management aspect to it, but I'm not sure what it entails for Panic specifically, but that's generally in game development how that goes.
Okay, interesting. I gotcha. It sounds like sort of an editor role in comics. Like I'm trying to equate it to a world that I understand, but like an
so if you
editor
look at
keeps track of
Excel,
all. Yeah. So okay, yeah, regale me with Excel. I can't wait, and neither can our listeners. So,
yeah. So if you're looking for a producer job and you happen to be near this is local to the Panic offices, correct?
I believe
it's not
so.
a remote position. Yeah,
I believe so.
And they're in the Pacific Northwest somewhere?
Yeah, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're around Portlandy area, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, Portland area listeners, give it a look if you happen to be a game producer.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for our boopity boop 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 news and notes for today, which bring us to Nick. I would like you to do the honors this episode and boop us into the next segment. You can do it.
All right. Boop indie games of the week.
Oh,
so Ryan, what?
No, let's try again. Okay, take two. Here we go.
All right. Boop boop. Ryan, what is your indie game of the week?
Major Dawn Sai. All right, let me just recover here from those lackluster boopity boop 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 boops for the indie game of the week. I have 5 more minutes. So
do you? All right.
This game is called 5 More Minutes, and oh goodness, is this ever a wacky little game? I'm going to read the description here for you real quick, because that makes for a fantastic podcast. It says, as you fall asleep, you must fight off Horu, who is adamantly trying to wake you up. As the sand flows through the hourglass, the morning quickly approaches. And I should probably let listeners know that Horu is a sentient hourglass who is like cruising around the screen in odd figure eight formations. Occasionally, hands appear around Horu, the sentient hourglass. You are trying to bop him with a mysterious ball. According to the itch page, it says the hero fires their magical bolt every 3 seconds. So this thing just fires off, and you're supposed to wham this hourglass Horu 2 times. And if you hit him 2 times, then of course he's an hourglass, the sand is slipping through, and when the sand all slips through, then the alarm goes off. But if you hit him 2 times with this ball, or what is it, magical bolt, then the hourglass flips over and the sands start coming down again. So basically you're buying yourself more time. So it's kind of an arcade-esque time racer, if you will. I'm probably making up these game genres as I'm speaking, but yeah, so you aim this magical bolt via the crank, and to my understanding, it just fires automatically. I was pressing the A and B buttons, and it didn't seem to do anything. I thought it was when I was mashing on them, but then I just stopped mashing on them, and it continues to fire. So I think it's just timed when you fire this little thing. It's also got like some minor platformer type of mechanics where you're jumping around on different platforms, but it's a static screen, so you're not moving from left to right or anything. Um, I am a little confused about some of the game mechanics. For example, there's like this cross that appears every
Yeah.
once in a while, and I don't think that it hinders your direction. I seem to be able to shoot through it regardless. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if I was able to move through it or not. I'll have to give that another try. But boy, howdy, is this game ever strange. It is a like a surrealistic nightmare of images, all shoved together. But once you get the hang of it, it's really quite charming. And as Horu's sand slips through his top half, um, you start to hear sort of these faint rings of that dreaded alarm clock sound. You all know what I'm talking about. We all have PTSD from this, but it starts approaching and then getting louder and louder. And if you hit him a second time, flips over and that goes away. But if you do not hit him a second time within that allotted time, then your game ends. So essentially, you're trying to stay asleep as long as possible. And once the alarm rings, then you wake up. So it tells you at the very end, you slept for 1 minute and 15 seconds or 7 minutes and 45 seconds or whatever you were able to accomplish. I think I've been able to get up to 7 minutes and change thus far. So if there's any Hello Playdate podcast listeners out there who have downloaded this and want to do a little high score, high minute challenge, let me know. We've got some high score challenges in the Discord. I'd love to chat. But in the meantime, Nicholas P. Baldridge, have you managed to play this game or even look at the itch page?
The my new middle name that starts with P is Playdate. So I have just been looking at the itch page while we've been talking here, and this looks really cool. I am curious because it appears that Horu can hit your character, your avatar, or you can walk through them, and then your character blinks. What does that do exactly?
As far as I know, nothing. I have not
Oh,
been able to
okay,
figure that out either. Maybe
okay.
it affects the sand in the hourglass
I've
because,
been scouring this GIF for this entire time here, and I cannot see any difference. But
yeah, there's no indication as to a life meter, but I did notice one time that it felt like, you've got like a reasonable yet succinct duration between the times when the hourglass flips over and the alarm starts ringing again. But
Hmm.
I noticed one time when I was playing that the alarm seemed to approach very quickly, like quicker than I could fire off two shots. So there was no way to remedy that. But maybe it's because I got hit by Horu. I'm not entirely sure, to tell you the truth. Again, listeners, if you've played this and have some insight, we'd love to hear from you. And it looks like this was uh, designed by maybe a couple of relatives. They're Jackson and Dylan Webb. Um, so Jackson or Dylan, if you are listening, man, let's chat. I'd love to hear some insights here.
Yeah. Um, and it looks like the developer has been pretty responsive to requests and so forth. The initial version didn't have an indicator for where the bolt was going to be thrown, and they took that advice to heart and added that. And I just looking at the gifts here, I'm sure that makes all the difference.
Yeah,
Um,
and it looks like they remedied that in pretty short order after the
yeah,
request. And all this to say, this game is pretty darn new. Looks like it's only been around a couple weeks at this point, so probably came out shortly after our last podcast. But but yeah, trying to highlight the new games here. Some of these new 250 plus indie games. So, Nick, you have any other thoughts on 5 more minutes?
I don't. I'll be downloading that and sideloading it and playing it one day. Um, so looking forward to that. Ryan, I'm curious though. Have you ever heard of Gimme Friction Baby?
You know what? I saw this on Itch,
Mhm.
and when I took a look at the screenshots, it just totally confounded me. I did not take the time to read all the pesky words, so I'm really hoping that you can illuminate the gameplay of Gimme Friction Baby.
Ryan, I'm starting to wonder about our methods of communication.
What's wrong with them? Audio
Uh,
only? Don't ever write any words to me. What's the problem?
I type you these 75 million page screeds, and I have a feeling you're just reading one
You
sentence.
do?
Anyway, um, so Gimme Friction Baby is something I had never heard of prior to sideloading it on my Playdate. So a little background, it is a um, Flash game uh, that
Hmm.
was apparently very popular uh, in the height of Flash game mania.
Uh-huh.
Um, and it's kind of sort of similar to Bust a Move or
Hmm.
Frozen Bubble, if you're familiar with either of those concepts,
Sure.
where you're rocketing a a bubble and trying to match colors. But the difference between Gimme Friction Baby and those games is that your screen is initially devoid of all bubbles, and it's in black and white, so you're not matching colors. Instead, what you're doing is launching the bubbles and hoping that they don't cross this foul line, which is right above your gun placement. Um, so the balls will rebound and then head back towards that foul line, and you want them to stop before they get there. So to do that, you have to take their momentum out by hitting different angles. So you're basically trying to shoot these balls and ricochet them in such a way that all their momentum disappears while they're on that upper portion of the screen. But there's a couple of quirks with it. So when you launch a ball and the ball stops, the distance from the outer edges of the screen to the center of the bubble is essentially how big that bubble becomes. So it becomes either a small obstacle or some size in between small and gigantic, but it can be very, very large. And so the issue becomes how your ball, the next ball that you launch, is impacted by hitting and ricocheting off of the previous one.
Hmm.
and you can have dozens of them on the screen. But your goal overall is not just to launch a bunch of bubbles up onto the top screen. Each bubble, as it stops, will have the number three emblazoned upon it. And every time that you ricochet another bubble off of it, that number decrements until it gets to zero, and then the
Oh,
bubble disappears. So the
okay.
challenge is twofold. You have to prevent the bubbles from going back towards your gun, but you also have to knock out the previous bubbles so that you have room for new bubbles to stay on the screen.
Very
Um,
interesting.
it's far more addictive than you might think. Um,
Yes, I was so confused when I first took a look at this, and you have really demystified this for me. I was initially wondering about the size of the bubbles that you were talking about, thinking that the numbers corresponded to some sort of number of ricochets or amount of distance they traveled or something, but that makes a lot of sense that it's the number of times they've been hit. I do have a question for you though. Um, in Puzzle Bobble or Bust a Move,
mhm.
typically when you toss the bubbles up, they stick to whatever bubbles they hit. Is that the same mechanic here, or can you ricochet it off a bubble? I'm looking at the first screenshot on the Gimme Friction Baby itch page,
Yeah.
and like, could I conceivably bounce it off that first number one bubble and hit that second number one bubble so that I hit two of them, or is the bubble going to
Yes.
stick once I?
N No. So
Okay.
unlike Bust a Move, Frozen Bubble, yeah, the ball does not stick to previous ones.
Do
So you're
you?
bouncing it, but that particular scenario is very dangerous because there's only one shot left before the bubble disappears. So it ricochets off of there, goes back down, hits the next one, that one disappears, hits the two, and then it's probably going to come back down and cross the foul line.
Hmm,
So
very interesting.
tough.
This sounds really cool.
It
I
is.
hadn't given this the time of day it deserved before, but I need to check this game out. This looks really
And
great.
this is the developer is not Peter, and they say this is a tribute to Gimme Friction Baby. This is not the original developer of Gimme Friction Baby, the Flash game. This is just somebody who implemented the same game on the Playdate. The difference between the Flash game and this is that the Flash game, the turret that fires the bubbles oscillates um, by itself.
Oh, interesting.
And on the Playdate, you're cranking to adjust the angle of fire, which is a lot simpler.
Uh,
Uh,
okay, so on the play date, you get to determine the angle,
yeah,
correct? Okay, gotcha. Um, are you able to determine the force by which you
no,
fire, or do you always fire at the same force?
you always fire at the same velocity. So you have to pay careful attention. So Ryan, would you like to hear my very impressive high score?
Only if it has anything to do with Excel.
It does. All right, I put it in cell A1. Um,
Okay.
my high score is the number three.
Is that good?
No, it's and that took me an embarrassing number of tries, but I will say that I continued to play this game, having a high score of two for a very long time until I crossed the threshold to three, and it's really enticing for such a low scoring game to make me want to continue to play. Tells me an awful lot about the game. So hopefully that tells you something too, and you'll give it a shot at some point. And it
Yeah,
is name your own price on itch. So um, worth a look.
very cool. I'm now quite interested in this game. I feel like I'm understanding these animated GIFs a little better. Uh, yeah, this looks really cool. I am very interested. You've piqued my interest again, Nick. Thank you
Nice.
for sharing this little indie gem on our boopity boop 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 indie games of the week. So this week, as listeners are likely already aware, we are out of season one games. So, hey, Nick, I was wondering if I could talk about a little something that I've been working on a whole bunch. Can I mention
Yeah,
something real quick that
please.
has absolutely nothing to do with Playdate? Well, I take that back. It has about a nanoliter to do with the Playdate. So,
It's measured in liquid.
this is not the greatest episode of mine. Don't rub it in.
How much Excel does it have? How many formulas?
Never enough. So
Bar
this thing,
charts?
this thing I've been working on is a new book of mine. Listeners know I am an artist and I make comics. And in recent days and months, I've been doing these weird little drawings that I'm calling mirror drawings, where I'll essentially doodle on the bottom corner of a sketchbook page and then mirror and duplicate it around about 4 times, and it makes this larger illustration. And I have been really diving neck deep into this project and getting ready for a launch on Kickstarter. It's not ready just yet. I wanted to sort of tease this out there a little bit because I've got a launch date. Nick, are you ready for this? It's going to happen a lot sooner than I thought it was going to.
Yes.
So I'm going to launch a Kickstarter on October 6th. And this is going to run for 3 weeks from October 6th to October 27th, which is a whole lot sooner than I originally expected. Originally, I was thinking, yeah, I'll probably run it for the length of November and then fulfill it in the new year. But I was talking with my brilliant wife, who said, "Oh, that's kind of a shame because I would love to give these out as holiday gifts." And then she asked me, "Is there any chance that you could move some dates around and uh, make this available by early to mid December?" And my knee jerk reaction was probably not, but I kept thinking about it, and I like the idea of these potentially being given as gifts. I also like the idea of wrapping up this campaign before the holidays so that I can kind of not think about it over my vacation. So
Yeah.
all that to say, I made a new timeline, figured this out, and figured out that yes, this can be done. Um, so I made a bunch of headway this past week. Got my whole campaign approved by Kickstarter. I've got a landing page now, and I have a URL that people can go to if
Let's
they are
hear it.
interested. So the URL is mirrordrawings.com. So if you go to mirrordrawings.com, it should direct you. I was just altering it right before the show. I think the DNS blobbity blue still needs to update, but I think by the time this airs, that URL should be functional and will direct you to the Kickstarter landing page where you can click a button that says notify me on launch, which obligates you to do nothing at all. So if you go to that page and click notify me on launch, essentially what Kickstarter is going to do is send you an email reminder saying, hey, this project is live. If you're interested, you can go check it out. But it requires you to make no monetary commitment to this project, but it does help me in the Kickstarter rankings because Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform and they like it when you bring a party. So if there's any listeners out there in Hello Playdate podcast land who are willing to click that notify me on launch button, I would surely appreciate it. It's over at mirrordrawings.com.
Sounds good. I'll be clicking it once that DNS works its way through the system. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
I told you there was a nanoliter of connection to the Playdate, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
neglected to mention that. So if anybody's been to our Hello Playdate podcast website, which is at playdatepodcast.com, and you look up in the banner, there is an image of the Playdate and some whitewater wipeout imagery and the casual birder imagery that I did in one of these mirror drawings. And so you're looking at a part of one of those mirror drawings that I'm hoping will be in the book. The vast majority of these drawings that I've done do not deal with other people's intellectual property, but that was
Right.
a rare one because I was and am so enamored with the Playdate. So the long story short is that I'm not certain that's going to be in the book or not, but I am in conversation with some folks at Panic to see if they will allow me to include that drawing because I would love to. I it's one of my favorites, but we'll see if it gets in there or not. So there's some behind the scenes info.
Cool. Well, very much looking forward to new Claytorian artwork as always.
Awesome.
Um,
Thank you.
so for listeners, Ryan goes over the top with all of his book productions. They're amazing. If you couldn't tell by how much he loves Excel, that is how much he loves uh, the illustrative work that he does. In fact, more so. So if you can believe it. But yeah. Anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing this, Ryan, and uh, excited to see how the campaign progresses and so forth. So good luck.
Cool. Cool. Thank you. And yeah, I've got some surprises up my sleeve too. I'm
Uh-oh.
pretty excited about some of these reward
Nanometers?
tiers. Yo, right. Compiling all the nanoliters. There's some reward tiers that I'm quite excited about that I hope other folks will get excited about too. Maybe I'll save that for a future episode. So this does not become the mirror drawings episode. Just wanted to share my excitement about this project with our listeners.
Uh, and what date is today? All right. Um, if I may, also say a little something about a thing I'm working on.
Yes.
So every year there's a particular pinball show that I love going to. It's called the White Rose Game Room Show. It's in York, Pennsylvania, and that's happening this year, October 7th and 8th for the public. If you bring a game, you can also get in on the 6th. Um, and I am bringing, let's see, 6 custom games that I've made.
Oh,
Um,
mercy. Are you kidding?
no,
You're
um,
bringing 6 games?
yeah.
Oh my God.
Uh,
What
and
what size moving truck are you renting for this?
well, it's funny that you ask. So 4 of those are P3 modules,
Okay.
um,
So
or
bringing
P3
three
games. So
full-size games. Okay, gotcha.
2 full-size games and then 4 P3 modules. Yeah, or 3 full-size games. Yes, and then 4 P3 modules.
All
Okay.
right. All right.
Anyway, I need Excel
You got
now.
my face twisting up there. Okay, now that makes sense.
um, so the games that I'm bringing are Ranger in the Ruins, which talked about last episode, Silver Falls, Flipper Foxtrot, Rhythm Explosion, Quest for Glory in its first public appearance, um, the Multi Bingo and Multi Races, and I'll every year I help put together this group of collectors that bring bingo pinballs. These are gambling pinballs, which were made between 1951 and 1981. And we try to have a wide range of different machines on the show floor in the free play area for people to try. But these games are very, very complicated and a little difficult to understand. So I and others who bring games for the row hang out and give tutorials to people. And if anybody's able to put together a 4 or 5 in a row win, then they will win a vinyl postcard with a medley of the soundtrack for my newest game, which is called Drained for the P3. That game will not be making an appearance this year. It didn't quite uh, make it under the approvals deadline for the show, but it will almost certainly be there next year. But until that time, there is so much to see and experience that I alone have made, and the whole show is amazing and full of games of all eras. And it is my favorite pinball show for a number of reasons, but it's very laid back. There's so much interesting history to explore, as well as different unique games to try. And I've even conned Ryan into coming a time or two. And I surely wish you would be able to attend this year, but hopefully at some point in the future we'll see you back there again, and you'll get to try some of the stuff that I've made. But
Yeah, I sincerely hope so too. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 times at this point, but uh everything that Nick says is true about the show being so cool, so laid back, and such an amazing breadth of games from, you know, pre-flipper games to wood rails to electromechanical to solid state to modern games to custom games like Nick is doing. And Nick, I can't believe you're bringing half a dozen games. That's insane. That alone is worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned. And when Nick says that he's producing a vinyl postcard, that's not just the material, that's like a thing you can put on your record player and play it, the song from his newest game that hasn't even been released yet. So anyway, uh I'm super excited. I wish I were coming. It sounds like such an amazing time. I hope you wow the crowd next month. I'm sure you will. So if anybody is within spitting or rock throwing distance or any distance from York, Pennsylvania at the beginning of next month, I would give it my highest possible recommendation. Totally worth it.
thanks very much. And
Yeah.
yeah, look forward to meeting our entire listenership in York, Pennsylvania, October. This is, a huge heads up about 2 weeks from now. So October 7th and 8th. Uh, I'm sure I'll see you all there. But I am looking for, if anybody is a listener and comes down, be sure to introduce yourself as such. And I look forward to meeting you.
Yeah, Nick will be camped out in Bingo Row next to his custom games, so he will not be hard to find. Looks just like the avatar in our Discord. All
Downloaded,
right.
but haven't played.
All right. Well, that's probably going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more about us, you can head over to playdatepodcast.com. We've got a bunch of show notes for today's episode and also a bunch of ways you can contact us over there, including getting involved in our Discord. Don runs a bunch of this stuff, the podcast, the organizes the Discord, puts everything together. And even though he's not here this episode today, I want to give big shouts to Don. We miss you, man. Looking forward to chatting with you again next time. Sorry that all of our schedules were so darn wacky this time around, but we'll get the gang back together next time. All right. Take care, guys.
Okay. Thanks. And thanks, Don. Bye.
Boop, 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 bye.